I arrived unannounced to see my daughter. She lay asleep on the floor near the door, wearing ragged, worn-out clothes. Her husband scraped his shoes on her and announced to the guests, "She's our deranged servant." I didn't raise my voice. I moved closer and everyone turned to stone, because... You ever had that moment when your entire world, everything you thought was true, just shatters in front of your eyes? Because for me, that moment came when I walked into my daughter's mansion, unannounced, and found her lying on the floor, degraded and broken, while her own husband, the man I'd entrusted her to, literally wiped his feet on her. It was a nightmare I never saw coming, and it ignited a fire in me that nothing could extinguish. I'm 60 years old. I'm a retired military surgeon. I've seen war, saved lives, buried friends. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for that day. Anna, my daughter, had been distant for months. First, she stopped answering calls. Then, short, clipped messages, *busy. Call later. Then, silence. Emails turned formal, then stopped altogether. I called the house landline, and a polite, chilling voice said, *Anna is resting, can't take calls. 3 weeks ago, I sent one last text, *Dad, help me. I called immediately. The number was out of service. Since then, nothing. The phone had been silent. But now, the silence was over. Now, I was here. Without warning. Without invitation. A 60-year-old military surgeon, standing in front of a beautiful, pristine white house, the kind of house you see in magazines. And I felt a cold dread in my chest, a deeper chill than any battlefield. I couldn't explain it, but it was there. With each step down the tiled path, that cold intensified. Everything looked normal: manicured garden, expensive cars, lights, music, laughter. The security booth by the gate was empty. I rang the bell. No answer. Again, longer. Silence. Then, I pushed the small side door. It opened. Unlocked. I walked up the driveway. The music grew louder now, jazz, faint voices. Clearly, a party. I tried the main door, rang the bell. No one. I went around the house, the music booming now through panoramic windows. A huge living room, full of people. Men in expensive suits, women in glittering dresses, waiters, a sparkling chandelier. I scanned, desperately searching for Anna. Nothing. Then, a small service door. Staff entrance. Unlocked. I slipped inside, into a narrow, antiseptic-smelling hallway. I followed it, opened another door, and stepped into the grand vestibule of the mansion. And there she was. Anna. Lying on the floor. Right on the decorative welcome rug. In a faded, stained gray t-shirt and sweatpants with holes in the knees. Her once vibrant hair was tangled, greasy. She didn't move. Just stared at the ceiling with empty eyes, as if she wasn't seeing anything. Or anyone. Guests just walked around her. Some even stepped over her. Like she was furniture. Then, from the living room, came Adrian. Anna's husband. The man I'd met only at the wedding, who'd seemed so charming, so confident. He was a well-built man in a perfectly tailored gray suit. Adrian approached the door. He didn't look down. He stepped directly on Anna. On her abdomen. And as if wiping the soles of his patent leather shoes, he rubbed first one foot, then the other. As if she wasn't a person, but just an entryway mat. Then he raised his voice, a casual, almost joking tone to the guests gathered. "Don't worry, everyone. This is our crazy servant. Poor thing's not quite right in the head, but we take care of her. It's our little charity project, you see." Some guests laughed. Others shook their heads with a sickening, false compassion. No one protested. I stood there, at the entrance to that service hallway. And in that moment, the world shrank. It became just Anna's body on the floor. The shoes. His suit stepping on her. The laughter, a screeching sound like glass on glass. I didn't scream. I didn't run to her. I took one step. Just one. Across that vestibule. And just then, somewhere in the living room, a glass shattered. The tinkling of crystal on marble made everyone turn. Standing in the doorway of the living room was Gerardo, Anna's grandfather. A man with gray hair, about 65, in an impeccable dark suit. A champagne glass lay at his feet, a golden puddle spreading. But he didn't notice. He was staring at me. Like he'd seen a ghost. I recognized him too. Those eyes. I'd seen them open 20 years ago, after a terrible operation. Gerardo. A young entrepreneur back then, nearly bled out from a mountain race accident. Ruptured spleen, liver damage, multiple internal hemorrhages. Any other surgeon would have called it hopeless. I operated for 4 grueling hours, literally putting him back together. When he came to, he cried, repeating, "I will return the favor. Whatever it costs. I'm indebted to you for the rest of my life." Now, this man stood frozen, looking at me with pure terror in his eyes. I straightened my shoulders. My voice, surprisingly, trembled. Adrian. Adrian raised his head. He heard his name. He looked at me, his father-in-law. For a split second, his face went utterly blank. Something sharp and dangerous, like the blade of a hidden knife, flashed in his eyes. But then, it was gone. As if someone had flipped a switch. He smiled. Broadly. "Papa," he exclaimed, moving away from Anna's body, arms open wide. "My God, what a surprise! An incredible surprise! Why didn't you let us know? I would have welcomed you as you deserve." I didn't move for his hug. My gaze swept past him, to my daughter still on the floor. Slowly, Anna raised her head. She looked at me. No recognition in her eyes. Only emptiness. And something like fear. "Anna," I said. My voice didn't sound right. She blinked. Once. Twice. Her lips moved. Papa. Her voice was a rasp. Barely a whisper. "Papa, are you alive?" Adrian turned to the guests, still smiling. "Friends, forgive this little spectacle. My wife and her father haven't seen each other in a long time. She's emotional. You know how women are." He subtly signaled a guard. The guard began gently herding people back into the living room. They left, whispering, casting curious glances back. Gerardo didn't move. He stood, watching me, his eyes pleading. Adrian helped Anna up. She moved like a puppet, arms limp. And that's when I saw them, small, dark injection marks on the inside of her elbows. Many of them. "Many marks, darling," Adrian murmured, holding her by the waist. "Look who came. Your papa. Isn't it wonderful?" Anna looked at me again. Very slowly, something alive flickered in her eyes. Recognition. And with it, intense fear. She trembled. "You're alive," she repeated, almost a sob. "He told me you had died." He showed me the newspaper. An obituary. "What?" I took a step towards her. "What obituary?" "Anna, what are you talking about?" Adrian laughed. It sounded utterly natural. Utterly carefree. My poor girl. You see, Papa, how she confuses things. It's the illness. The latest delusions. The doctors diagnosed drug-induced schizophrenia. Yes, it's hard for me to talk about this, but Anna became addicted to various harmful substances. He shook his head with false sadness. I've done everything. Doctors, clinics. But even now, mentally, not much progress. I looked him in the eye. 30 years of surgical practice had taught me to see lies. To see fear behind bravado. Calculation behind smiles. I want to talk to my daughter alone, I said. Of course, Adrian nodded. But first, let's get you settled. We have plenty of guest rooms. You must be tired from your trip. And Anna needs her rest. Her medication. I want to talk to her now. Papa, please. Adrian's voice sharpened, like a whip crack. Don't make a scene. This party is extremely important. My business depends on these people. Let's discuss everything calmly. As a family. I'll take Anna upstairs, and then you and I will talk. Man to man. Agreed? He didn't wait for an answer. He took Anna by the elbow and led her away. She walked behind him, obediently, like a child. Only once did she glance back at me. And in her eyes was so much longing, so much raw pain, that my hope choked. I wanted to follow them, to rush up the stairs. But then, 2 burly men in black suits appeared. As if they'd sprouted from the floor. Security. Excuse me, sir, one said, polite but firm. The master asks that you wait for him in his office. I could have fought. Caused a scene. But I knew it wouldn't help. 2 guards against a 60-year-old. Even if I broke through, then what? Adrian would call the police. Formally, he'd be right, trespassing, assault. I needed information. I needed a plan. All right, I said. Where's the office? They led me through the vestibule, past the living room where the party continued as if nothing had happened, down a hallway to the back of the house. The office was spacious, oak-paneled, with a massive leather desk and untouched, perfectly aligned books in glass cases. The guards stayed outside. I walked to the window, looking out at the dark garden. My hands were shaking. Not from fear, but from the raw, contained rage boiling inside me. The door opened. Gerardo entered. He looked 20 years older than he had moments ago. He closed the door and stood there, not daring to come closer. I didn't know, he began, his voice trembling. I didn't know. I swear by everything I hold dear. I didn't know. Didn't know what? I didn't turn from the window. What he was doing to her. Gerardo leaned against the door, his legs seemingly unable to support him. When I introduced them, I thought she'd be happy. I gave my blessing. It's my sin. Now I see. I turned. Looked at the man whose life I'd saved. Tell me, I said. Everything. From the beginning. Gerardo sank into a chair. It was 3 years ago. A charity gala. Adrian was there, son of an old business partner. We talked. He mentioned he was looking for a wife. I remembered Anna. She was working at a publishing house. Intelligent, beautiful, modest. The perfect wife for a man of his circle. He rubbed his forehead. I introduced them. They clicked. 6 months later, they were married. This house was a wedding gift from me. He looked up. I saw how happily he looked at her. She was truly in love. He thanked me for introducing him to his happiness. When did it start? I asked. I went to Europe for 6 months. Business. When I returned, I started hearing rumors. Adrian's young wife was ill. Drug problems. He was taking her from doctor to doctor. I wanted to visit, but Adrian always had an excuse. Anna was in quarantine. Not feeling well. Gone for treatment. Gerardo's eyes met mine. And I believed him. And then I understood. I understood he was doing to her the same thing he'd done to the others. The cold in my chest turned to ice. What others? Gerardo opened his mouth to answer. But just then, the door burst open. Adrian stood there, smiling. But his eyes were cold, assessing. The eyes of a predator. Ignacio, he said with feigned reproach. Leaving the guests for a private conversation? Not very polite. Gerardo stood up. He was pale. Fear. This influential man was afraid of a 35-year-old. I just wanted, Gerardo began. I understand, Adrian interrupted, smoothly. You wanted to pay your respects to my wife's father. Very commendable. Now, please return to the guests. I need to speak with my father-in-law. Alone. Gerardo looked at me. An apology. A warning. We'll see each other again, he mumbled, and left. Adrian closed the door. The smile vanished. Well, he said, walking to the desk, sitting in the owner's chair. Let's talk. Man to man. He leaned back, arms crossed, watching me with the air of someone completely in control. The amiable host was gone. This was the predator. Please sit, he indicated a chair. The conversation will be long. I didn't sit. I remained standing by the window, arms crossed. Staring at him the way I used to stare down young officers trying to lie to me. That look made men sweat. Adrian just shrugged. As you wish. If you're more comfortable standing. Though at your age, you should take care of your legs. What's happening with her? I wasn't asking. I was demanding. Adrian sighed, the air of someone explaining the obvious to an idiot. He opened a drawer, pulled out a folder, and slid it across the desk. I was hoping we wouldn't come to this, he said. Hoping you'd accept the situation quietly. Without unnecessary questions. But since you insist. He opened the folder. Medical reports. Prescriptions. Photographs. Anna is ill, Adrian pronounced, with a sadness that felt too well rehearsed. Schizoaffective disorder. Provoked by abuse of psychoactive substances. In simple terms, she became addicted to drugs 3 months after our wedding. First cocaine, then something stronger. I tried to stop her. Too late. The psychosis started. Hallucinations. Episodes of aggression. He pulled a photograph from the folder. A woman who looked like Anna, but distorted. Disheveled hair, glazed eyes, mouth screaming. Clutching a knife in a corner. This was 8 months ago, Adrian said. She tried to stab me. Said I was poisoning her food, that I wanted to kill her. Classic paranoid delirium. I took the photograph. Examined it. My surgeons trained, I noticed things an ordinary person wouldn't. Dilated pupils. Unnatural pallor. Body position of someone fighting loss of coordination. This didn't look like cocaine psychosis. This looked like poisoning. I took her to the best specialists, Adrian continued. A clinic in Switzerland. Professors from Germany. Everyone said the same thing, irreversible changes. She'll never be the same. He pulled out more documents, medical reports, seals, signatures. I could have committed her to a closed psychiatric clinic. His voice softened, becoming almost understanding. I had every right. But I love Anna, Victor. Despite everything. That's why I keep her at home. I provide care. Pay for treatment. It's cost me a lot of money and nerves, but I don't give up. I placed the photograph back on the desk. Why is she lying on the floor by the door? My voice was calm. Adrian spread his hands. It's part of her disorder. Sometimes she refuses to get up for hours. Sometimes she undresses completely, runs around the house. Sometimes she screams she's being held hostage by aliens. The doctors call them catatonic episodes. And you wiped your feet on her. Adrian was silent for a second. Something flashed in his eyes. Anger. Irritation. It vanished instantly, replaced by patient compassion. I didn't even notice she was lying there, he said. It's so terrible that I've gotten used to it. My own wife, lying on the floor. And I'm so accustomed that I walk past without looking. That's how far we've sunk. I live with this every day. He shook his head, a performance of weariness and despair so convincing, an unprepared person would believe him without a doubt. Listen, Victor. Adrian leaned forward, his voice almost confidential. I understand it's difficult for you to accept this. She's your daughter. You remember her differently. Healthy, happy. But the reality is what it is. Anna is ill. Seriously. Possibly incurably ill. I do everything in my power to ease her suffering. I remained silent. Processing. 30 years as a surgeon taught me to listen not just to words, but to the pauses between them. To notice how a person breathes when they tell the truth. And when they lie. Adrian was lying. I was as sure of it as I was of my own name. But words alone weren't enough. I needed evidence. She said you told her I had died, I said. That you showed her an obituary. Adrian sighed again, this time with a touch of condescension. And you believed her? A woman who yesterday claimed the neighbor's cat speaks Vietnamese to her? He shook his head. Victor, I understand a father's feelings. But let's be realistic. Anna can't distinguish reality from her hallucinations. There might have been an obituary in a magazine about some stranger, and she decided it was you. Or she simply invented the whole story. He leaned back, his expression now calculating. Let's speak frankly, he said. I see what you think of me. I saw it in your eyes when you entered. You think I'm a monster who abuses Anna. But the truth is, I'm the only person who takes care of her. He stood, walked to a bar, poured whiskey into a heavy crystal glass. Where were you the last year and a half? He asked, not turning around. She tried to contact you. Tried to call. And you simply resigned yourself. You didn't come. Didn't check. You know why? Because it was more comfortable for you to think she was happy. More comfortable not to know the truth. Those words hit their mark. Because it was the truth. I had convinced myself Anna's silence meant she was busy, not in trouble. I had convinced myself a rich husband would take better care of her than I ever could. But I was by her side, Adrian continued, glass in hand. Every day. Every night. When she screamed. When she didn't recognize me and called me other names. When she tried to throw herself out the window. I went through all of it. I begged her to live. I convinced myself not to give up. He took a sip, looked me straight in the eyes. Of that, you're not guilty. You ran away when everything started. Where were you when it was hard? Why didn't you answer when she tried to reach you? Because she didn't matter to you. Because it was easier not to know. I clenched my fists. so hard my nails dug into my palms. I wanted to cross the room and break this man's face. But my surgeon's mind, trained in years of extreme pressure, remained cold. Calculating. Adrian was provoking me. Waiting for me to lose control. To give him a reason to call security, to make me look like an unstable aggressor. I read my wife's diaries, I said, my voice so low it was almost a whisper. After her death. 30 years of notes. About how unhappy she was. About how I controlled her. About how I killed her slowly with my care. I looked Adrian straight in the eyes. So don't lecture me. I know what it's like to destroy the person you love in the name of love. I know what it's like when care becomes a cage. And I see myself in you, Adrian. I see the monster I was. And I see how you use that. How you found in Anna a victim who was prepared from childhood to accept control as love. Something flickered in Adrian's eyes. Surprise, perhaps? Or respect? He recovered quickly. If you understand this, he said slowly, then you should understand. I'm doing what's best for her. I'm protecting her from herself. You're poisoning her. I spoke the words like a sentence. With the same drugs you used to poison your previous wives. Silence fell. Broken only by the distant sounds of the party. Adrian stood motionless, glass in hand. His face was absolutely calm. But his pupils narrowed. The muscles on his neck tensed. That's quite an accusation, he said finally. Based on what? On the delusions of a schizophrenic? On paranoia? Based on medical knowledge, I responded. I've seen drug poisoning. I know what it looks like. And Anna shows all the signs of systematic administration of substances that destroy will and consciousness. Adrian put down the glass. Approached me. No smile now. No pretense. Just cold calculation. Even if that were true, he said quietly, who would believe you? An old retired surgeon against me? I have doctors, lawyers, witnesses. I have medical reports signed by the best specialists. And what do you have? The word of a woman the court has declared incompetent. He moved closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. Do you want to fight me? Try. Call the police. Demand an investigation. I have connections at every level. My godfather is a Supreme Court judge. How do you think this will end for you? I looked into the eyes of the man who had destroyed my daughter. Something cold and final settled in my chest. Not anger. Not hatred. Just absolute certainty. I'll take her away from here, I said. No, you won't. Adrian smiled. One call, and you'll be arrested. Breaking and entering. Assault in my own home. A criminal case. And while you're dealing with that, I'll commit Anna to a closed psychiatric facility. I have all the necessary documents. Medical reports. Doctor testimonies. The court will declare her incompetent. And you will never see her again. Ever. He walked back to the desk. Pressed a button. The guards entered. Escort Mr. Mitchell out, Adrian ordered. And make sure he doesn't return. The guards took my elbows. I didn't resist. I looked at Adrian one last time. This isn't over, I said. Oh, but it is. Adrian smiled. Completely and irreversibly over. They escorted me to the main entrance. Released me on the porch. Below, a taxi was waiting. I descended the steps, got in, gave the address of the train station. The taxi pulled away. The mansion began to shrink in the rear window. But I wasn't looking back. I was looking at a business card I still held in my hand. On the back, below the printed phone number, someone had handwritten a few words, *Gerardo, today, Riverside Cafe. I'll be waiting, *. The handwriting was unknown. Someone at the party. Someone who had seen. I put the card in my pocket. Gave the driver a new address. The meeting with Gerardo. The house on Riverside Street. An old mansion, wedged between modern office buildings like a forgotten fragment of the past. The taxi stopped. Iron gates, rusted. An unkempt garden, bare trees. The gates were ajar, as if waiting. I walked down the path. The massive wooden door opened before I could knock. Gerardo stood there. No jacket. Shirt unbuttoned. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in days. "Come in," he said, his voice low. The house smelled of wood and old books. Gerardo led me to a living room where a fire crackled. 2 armchairs faced the flames. On a small table, a carafe of cognac, 2 glasses. "Sit down." I sat. Refused the cognac. Gerardo poured himself a drink, took a large gulp, and sank into the opposite armchair. He stared into the fire for several minutes. "My wife was making funeral arrangements," Gerardo began, "and then you appeared. For grueling hours on the operating table. When I woke up, the first thing I said was a promise I would return the favor. Whatever it cost. At any time." I made her write it down. I repeated it every day for all these years. "Then return it," I said. "Tell me everything." Gerardo lowered the glass. Covered his face with his hands. "I should start with myself. With my own sin. Because without that, you won't understand Adrian. He's my sin. I created that monster." He dropped his hands. "Pablo Dominguez was my business partner. We started together in the 90s. Money flowed in ways it's better not to remember. Pablo was ruthless. But I considered him a friend. When Adrian was 15, Pablo asked me to be his godfather. To help the boy. To teach him." He looked at the fire. Adrian grew up smart. At 21, a banker. At 23, he married a beautiful girl. Marina. 20 years old. Sweet eyes. Fresh university graduate. Gerardo fell silent. They got married. A year later, Marina ended up in a psychiatric clinic in Switzerland. Official diagnosis: acute psychosis from drug addiction. Her parents tried to get her out, but Adrian managed to have her declared incompetent. Now, he was her legal guardian. All her inheritance, which wasn't small, passed under his control. He leaned back heavily. The second wife was Olga. A widow of an industrialist. Older than Adrian by 15 years. A rich woman. Married 6 months. Then she died from an overdose of sleeping pills. The investigation closed in 3 weeks. Suicide due to depression. Adrian inherited everything. And you kept quiet. My voice was hoarse. You knew all this. Gerardo raised his hands in defense. Pablo was still alive then. He covered for his son. And I didn't want to see. Didn't want to believe. Adrian was so charming. So convincing. He cried at Olga's funeral with real tears. He cried on my shoulder. I consoled him. He covered his face again. When he asked me to introduce him to Anna, I was happy to help. I thought I was doing something good. Uniting 2 good people. Anna was so luminous. So full of life. I thought she would change him. When did you understand the truth? I asked. 3 months ago. Gerardo uncovered his face. Pablo was dying of cancer. Alone in the hospital. He started talking. Confessing. As the dying sometimes do. He told me about Marina. About Olga. About how Adrian paid doctors for false diagnoses. How he bribed investigators and judges. He broke off, rubbing his forehead. He was proud of it. Do you understand? Proud of the son he had raised. A cold spread down my spine. Why didn't you go to the police? Gerardo let out a bitter laugh. With what? The delirious ramblings of a dying man? No evidence. Adrian by then had become too influential. Too protected. His connections reached the highest levels. He lowered his voice. I was afraid, Victor. Afraid for myself. For my family. I have children. Grandchildren. I was afraid. I stood. Walked to the window. The garden, drowned in darkness. Bare branches scratching the sky like dead fingers. He said he sees vulnerabilities, I said, turning. He said he saw them in Anna. And in me. Gerardo was silent. I don't know the details, he said. But Adrian once let slip that Anna was the perfect victim. He said she had always sought someone to control her. That she had it in her blood. I closed my eyes. Adrian's words in the office echoed in my head. Asterisk about Lydia. How she obeyed. How he found something familiar in Anna. Asterisk, he told me the same, I said, my voice low. He said she was like me. That I trained her to accept control as love. Gerardo looked at me, a strange expression on his face. Is it true? He asked cautiously. I remained silent for a long time. The fire crackled. Trembling shadows danced on the walls. When I finally spoke, my voice was raw. I never hit my wife. Never raised my voice. On paper, I was the perfect husband. Respected surgeon. Good salary. Didn't drink. Didn't cheat. Everyone told Lydia how fortunate she was. I returned to the armchair. Looked at my hands. But I controlled her every step. Decided what she would wear. What she would eat. Where she would go. Who her friends would be. She wanted to work. I said, no. Your place is at home. She wanted to visit her sister. No. Stay here. She wanted another child. No. One is enough. I clenched my fists. I did it with love. With care. I knew better. I was more intelligent. More experienced. Stronger. She should obey because I knew what was best for her. That's what I thought. That's how I justified it. What happened to her? Gerardo asked, his voice low. She got sick at 40. The doctor said it was her heart. But I'm a doctor myself. I know her heart had nothing to do with it. She simply stopped wanting to live. Stopped eating. Stopped sleeping. She was fading before my eyes, and I couldn't understand. Didn't want to see. I raised my head. She died at 52. In our bedroom. In our bed. I came home from work and found her. She was smiling. For the first time in many years, she was smiling. The silence in the room was absolute. Only the fire. Anna didn't cry at the funeral, I continued. I thought she was too shocked. But then I understood. It wasn't grief. It was relief. Her mother had been freed. And Anna was happy for her. I looked at Gerardo. After Mother's death, I found her diaries. 30 years of notes. Every day. Thousands of pages. About how unhappy she was. How I had dominated her. How she hated her life. How she dreamed of escaping but had nowhere to go. How she prayed for death. My voice broke. I read it all. Every word. And I understood that I had been killing her all those years. Slowly. Imperceptibly. With love in my heart. I killed her without even realizing it. Gerardo extended the glass of cognac. This time, I took it. Drank it all in one gulp. Adrian is right about one thing, I said. Anna grew up in a house where love meant control. Where care meant submission. She didn't know anything else. When she met him, she recognized something familiar. She felt at home. That doesn't excuse what he's doing to her, Gerardo said. I know, I responded. But it makes me responsible for her being defenseless. I taught her to accept violence as love. I created the victim he found. I stood up. A new determination burned in my eyes. But I can still fix everything. I can't give back the years I took from Lydia. I can't undo what I taught Anna. But I can get her out of there. I can give her a chance at a different life. How? Gerardo asked. He has money. Connections. Lawyers. You have nothing. I have you, I said. You know people. You know where to look. I have my medical knowledge. I know what he's doing to her. And I have something he doesn't have. What? Nothing to lose. Gerardo looked at me for a long moment. Something shifted in his face. The fear gave way to something else. Shame, perhaps. Determination. All right, he said finally. I'll help. But understand what we're up against. If we lose, Adrian will destroy us both. And Anna will be taken to a place she'll never return from. If we don't try, I responded, Anna will never return anyway. Gerardo nodded. Pulled out his phone. I have a contact in the prosecutor's office. Someone who owes me a favor. I'll see if I can get them to look at the case. Quietly. As far as possible. We need evidence, I said. Testimony. Witnesses. Recordings. Video surveillance. There are cameras in the house, but only Adrian has access, Gerardo said. The service staff is intimidated. They won't talk. The doctors are bought. He shrugged. It seems hopeless. There must be someone, I insisted. Someone who knows what's happening and can't live with it. Gerardo thought. There's a maid. Sophia. She's worked there since the first wife. I've seen how she looks at Adrian. As if she wants to say something, but she's afraid. Can you contact her? I'll try. But it's dangerous. If Adrian finds out. Tell her I'm a doctor, I said. Tell her I can help Anna. Tell her this is the only chance. Gerardo nodded. I'll call you tomorrow afternoon. Stay in the city. But don't go near the mansion. Let Adrian think you've left. I extended my hand. Gerardo shook it. More than a formal agreement. The redemption of a 20-year-old debt. Thank you, I said. Don't thank me, Gerardo responded. We haven't won yet. We might not succeed. We will succeed, I said. We have no other choice. I walked out into the cold night, looking for a taxi. In my head, Lydia's words echoed. Words I knew by heart, even though I wished I could forget them. Asterisk today he decided again what I would wear. I couldn't say anything. I can only write here. I'm afraid. I'm afraid of myself. Sometimes I think if he loves me. I wonder when this will end. And I'm afraid of the answer. 20 years ago, I'd read those lines and cried. Cried from self-pity. From lack of understanding. From resentment at a wife who hadn't valued my care, my help. I cried again now. But for something different. From understanding. From shame. From the crushing knowledge that I had made Lydia suffer, had made her the person she hated. And from the fierce determination not to let history repeat itself. The hotel room was small, plain. Thin walls. Voices from neighbors, traffic noise. I sat on the bed, staring at my phone. Waiting. An entire day passed since I left Gerardo's house. A whole day of inaction. Harder than any multi-hour surgery. I thought of Anna. What was happening to her at this very moment while I sat here? The drugs, slowly destroying her mind. The husband, wiping his feet on her. Laughing in front of guests. Each hour of delay could be the last. The phone rang at 7 p.m. Dark outside. Unknown number. Victor, Gerardo's voice. Tense. I found Sophia. She agreed to meet. But only with you. She's afraid of me. Says I'm Adrian's friend. Where and when? Tonight, at 9. She buys groceries every night at that time. Adrian only allows her to leave for shopping. The main city market. Vegetable stand. She'll be wearing a gray coat and a blue scarf. I noted the address. I'll be there. Wait, Gerardo hesitated. My contact in the prosecutor's office reviewed Olga's case. Officially, everything is clean. Suicide. No suspicious circumstances. But in the archived records, he found a domestic worker statement. It wasn't included in the case materials. What statement? She said she saw Adrian enter his wife's room an hour before her death. Saw him leave with a small vial in his hand. The investigator noted it. But someone crossed it out. The investigator was transferred a month later. I gripped the phone. The plastic creaked. Is that enough to open a case? Probably not. The statement isn't certified. The witness retracted the next day and left. The case was closed. But if we add other evidence, the picture starts to form. What other evidence? That depends on what Sophia tells you. And whether you can get a blood sample from Anna. If they find traces of drugs not officially prescribed to her, it will be the beginning of the end for Adrian. I hung up. Began to prepare. In my travel bag, a medical kit. A habit from military days. Syringes. Needles. Basic medications. I didn't know if I'd need them. But I had a feeling I would. The taxi dropped me 3 blocks from the mansion. I walked the rest of the way, keeping to the shadows. The night was moonless. The darkness was my camouflage. The back door was unlocked. Just as Sophia promised. I slipped inside. Froze. Motionless. Listening. Silence. Only the hum of a refrigerator. And the soft snoring of a guard by the front entrance. I moved down the service hallway I now knew, careful not to make the floorboards creak. The second floor was darker, but my eyes had adjusted. 3rd door on the right from the stairs. The door wasn't locked. I pushed it gently. Entered. The room was large. Almost empty. A bed against the wall. A nightstand. A window with drawn curtains. And Anna, lying on the bed in an unnatural position, as if someone had just thrown her there. I approached, closed the door. In the darkness, her face was lifeless. I felt for her pulse. Weak, but regular. I took out a small flashlight, shielded it with my palm. Her pupils were dilated, almost no reaction to light. On her arms, multiple injection marks. Old and new. Her skin was pale. Dry. Lips cracked. I checked the nightstand. A half-empty glass of water. Pills in an unlabeled blister pack. A vial with clear liquid, also unlabeled. I smelled the liquid. Recognized the characteristic odor. My assumption was confirmed. I took out a syringe. The vial with the antidote. My hands didn't tremble, though I held my daughter's life in that grip. 30 years of practice taught me to separate emotions from actions. Now, I was a father. I was a surgeon. The injection took seconds. Now, we waited. I sat on the edge of the bed. Took Anna's hand. Cold. Inert. Like a sleeping child's. I looked at her face. Remembered her as a little girl. Running around the house. Laughing. Hugging me when I came home. I couldn't remember when she stopped hugging me. When the warmth turned to polite distance. When love transformed into obligation. 10 minutes. 20. She remained motionless. Then, her eyelids moved. Her fingers weakly squeezed my hand. Her lips parted. Asterisk papa. Asterisk a rasp. Barely heard. Asterisk papa. Asterisk she repeated. I leaned closer. I'm here, I said. I'm with you. Anna slowly opened her eyes. Confusion. Fear. And something more. Hope. You're alive, she whispered, as if she couldn't believe it. He said you had died. He showed me the newspaper. I thought he was lying. I thought, I'm alive. I squeezed her hand. I came for you. She tried to sit up, but her body wouldn't respond. She let her head fall back, tears running down her cheeks. I wanted to call you, her voice hoarse. When everything started. But he took my phone. Said you didn't care. That you never wanted me. He showed me the newspaper. The obituary. And I believed him. I believed you had left me alone. You are not alone. Tears burned my own eyes. You were never alone. I'm here. I came for you. Do you hear me? We're leaving together. Anna looked at me. A clarity appeared in her eyes, one she hadn't had moments ago. The antidote was working. He won't let you, she said. Her voice no longer trembling. He has guards. Lawyers. Connections. He told me he'd bury me. That I'd never go anywhere. He's wrong, I responded. Because now you have me. And I won't leave until you're free. Somewhere below, a door slammed. Footsteps. I tensed, ready. The door to the room opened. Sophia's panicked face. The guard change ended early, she whispered. You have 3 minutes. I acted with the speed I was accustomed to in the operating room. When every second counted. I scooped Anna into my arms. She helped where she could. Her body was weak, almost weightless. But her eyes were conscious. That gave me hope. Can you walk? I whispered. She tried, but her legs buckled. I caught her. I'd have to carry her. I wrapped an arm around her waist, threw her arm over my shoulder, and headed for the door. Sophia waited in the hallway, listening. Somewhere below, guards were talking. Muffled voices. Wait, she whispered. Until they pass. We waited. The voices faded. Not the main stairs, Sophia whispered. There's a service stairway at the end of the hallway. Leads to the kitchen. From there, through the back door. We moved down the dark hallway. I felt Anna trying to walk on her own, trying not to be a burden. Her legs barely obeyed her. The service stairway was narrow, steep. Carrying an almost unconscious person down it was near impossible. But I managed, one hand on the railing, the other supporting Anna. The kitchen was empty, dark. Sophia led us between tables and refrigerators. The door to the courtyard. Just a few steps from freedom. Then the lights came on. Adrian stood by the wall, leaning against the doorframe. A glass of wine in his hand. He wore a home robe, looked relaxed. As if he'd been waiting. Not just now, but for a long time. Well, he said, smiling. How touching. Papa came for his daughter. I knew you wouldn't be able to resist, Victor. That's why I was waiting. He took a sip of wine, savoring the moment. Sophia. He turned to the maid. You disappoint me. After everything I've done for you. For your family. Sophia didn't answer. She pressed against the wall, trying to disappear. Adrian pulled a phone from his robe. One call, and you'll both go to prison. Breaking and entering. Attempted kidnapping of an incapacitated person. Assault. Anna will go to a closed psychiatric facility. I have all the necessary documents. Medical reports. Doctor's signatures. The court will declare her incompetent. And you will be accused of breaking and entering and assault. My godfather is a Supreme Court judge. How do you think this will end for you? Anna isn't incapacitated. I took a step forward. She's being poisoned by you. With the same drugs you poisoned Marina and Olga with. Something flashed in Adrian's eyes, but he recovered quickly. Delirious imaginings of a sick woman, he said calmly. I have all the medical documents, signed by the best specialists. And what do you have? The words of a senile old woman, and the paranoia of a retired military doctor. I have Anna's blood analysis. It was a lie. But Adrian couldn't know. Which I took 20 minutes ago. Tomorrow morning, it will be in an independent laboratory. Adrian froze. Phone in hand. For the first time, his confidence wavered. You're bluffing, he said, but his voice wasn't as steady. Prove it. Show it to me. We stared at each other. Seconds stretched into hours. Then, the kitchen door leading to the entrance burst open. Several people entered. But it wasn't security. First was Gerardo, a coat hastily thrown over his pajamas. Behind him, a man in a prosecutor's office uniform, a folder in his hands. And two plainclothes police officers. They immediately spread out, blocking the exits. Adrian stared at his godfather, utterly incomprehending. Ignacio. His voice trembled for the first time. What does this mean? Gerardo didn't answer. He looked at Adrian as one looks at someone you've just seen for the first time, and who fills you with nausea. The prosecutor stepped forward. Adrian Dominguez, we ask you to accompany us to give testimony regarding the death of your second wife, Olga Martinez. We have reason to believe her death was not suicide. This is absurd. Adrian raised his voice. There's no evidence. The case was closed 4 years ago. The case has been reopened. The prosecutor placed the folder on the table. Based on new testimony and the results of a new expert examination. Additionally, we've received a request from the Swiss clinic where your first wife is interned. The doctors there expressed concern about the nature of her illness and request an independent examination. Adrian turned to Gerardo. It was you. After everything. My father took you out of poverty. He gave you everything. Your father died 3 months ago, Gerardo responded, his voice low. And before he died, he told me the truth. About Marina. About Olga. About everything he knew and hid. He was proud of it, Adrian. Proud of the monster he had raised. He shook his head. And I should have stopped it 20 years ago. I was carrying this burden, paying a debt to the man who saved my life. And I repaid it by handing your daughter to a monster. Today, I closed that circle. Adrian lunged for the back door. But one of the police officers was faster. A second later, Adrian was face down on the kitchen table, hands cuffed behind his back. I have a lawyer, he shouted. I have connections. You don't know who you've messed with. Your connections are very busy right now, the prosecutor said calmly, answering questions about their own participation in your affairs. Ignacio turned out to be a very informative interlocutor. They led Adrian towards the exit. At the door, he turned. Looked at Anna, who stood leaning on me. For the first time in a long time, she looked at her husband without fear. I'm sorry I didn't see it, she said. Her voice was weak, but firm. I'm going to file for divorce. And testify about everything you did to me. About every pill. About every injection. About every day you stole from me. She took a step towards him. I felt the pure rage in this emaciated, nearly destroyed girl. You said I was your property. That I was the doormat you wiped your feet on. Now the doormat is you. And I'm stepping over you. She walked to the door without looking back. I followed. The last thing I heard was Adrian's voice, turning into a scream, "This isn't over. Do you hear me? This isn't over." But it was. At least for him. Gerardo stayed by my side, helping navigate bureaucratic labyrinths that were utterly unknown to a retired military surgeon. By morning, Anna was in a private hospital room, connected to an IV drip, flushing the remains of the poison from her system. Doctors said physically, she'd recover in a few weeks. Psychologically, it would take longer. But they were optimistic. Especially now that she was safe. And knew the truth. I sat by her bed, holding her hand. Outside, dawn was breaking. The first rays of sun painted the hospital windows gold and warm. Papa, Anna opened her eyes. You're still here. I'm not going anywhere, I responded. Unless you kick me out yourself. She smiled weakly. But the smile faded. I need to tell you something, she said, her voice low. Something I never told you. Not because you didn't care. But because I was afraid. I kept silent, giving her time. She continued, you were just like him. Not so cruel. Not so obvious. But the same. You controlled Mom every day of her life. You decided everything for her. What to eat. What to wear. Who to be friends with. You called it care. But it was a prison. Tears ran down her cheeks. But she didn't stop. I grew up in that prison. I thought it was normal. That's how families were. That the man should control, the woman should obey. When I met Adrian, he seemed familiar. Safe. I recognized you in him. And I thought that was right. Anna let her hand drop, but her eyes didn't leave my face. When Mom died, I didn't cry. Not at the funeral. Everyone thought I was in shock. But the truth is, I was happy for her. Happy she was finally free. And I hated you for that. Hated you for what you did to her. What you taught me. I lowered my head. Every word fell like a hammer blow. I accepted those blows. Because I deserved them. You're right, I said finally. I found her diaries several years after the funeral. I read them all night. And tried to understand what kind of monster I had been all those years. I raised my eyes to her. Full of tears. I can't change the past. I can't give back to your mother the years I took from her. I can't erase what I taught you. But I can acknowledge my guilt. And I can try to be a different person. If you give me a chance. Anna looked at me in silence for a long time. In her eyes was pain accumulated over the years. Rage that found no outlet. And something else. Something. Resembling a willingness to finally let go of hate. I don't know if I can forgive you, she said finally. Maybe I never can. But you came for me. You risked everything to save me. And you acknowledged what you did, instead of justifying yourself. She squeezed my hand harder. It's not enough to erase the past. But it's enough to try building something new. I nodded. Feeling something warm spread in my chest. Not redemption, because some things can't be redeemed. But something close to peace. To acceptance. To the possibility of moving forward. Adrian was sentenced to life imprisonment for the murders of Olga and Marina. Evidence of systematic poisoning was overwhelming. Sophia received asylum and started a new life, safe. Gerardo found peace, having finally repaid his debt. Anna and I? Our relationship rebuilt slowly. Not as the father and daughter we were before. But as two adults, learning to trust again. She invited me to dinner at her small apartment. She cooked. Set the table. Chose the wine. When I entered, she hugged me. For the first time in many years. Truly. Like people who love each other hug. Thank you, she said. For coming back then. For not giving up. For changing. I hugged her back. Felt that warmth spread. Thank you, I said. For giving me a second chance. We had a long conversation that evening. About the past that couldn't be changed. About the present we were building. And about a future that, for the first time in a long time, didn't bring fear. When I was leaving, Anna stopped me at the threshold. You know what I understood this year, she said. That forgiveness isn't a moment. It's a process. Every day you have to decide anew whether to hold on to the pain or let it go. And every day it gets a little easier. I nodded. I learned that too. And I'm grateful for every day you give me the opportunity to be better. I went out into the night. Walked down the street towards my home. The city slept, but some windows were still lit. And behind each one was its own story. Its own mistakes. Its victories. Its monsters. And its heroes. I didn't know if I'd turned into a hero. Probably not. But I knew for sure I had stopped being a monster. And that was more than enough. I wonder, have you ever experienced a situation where you had to confront a difficult truth about someone you loved, or even about yourself, to protect what truly mattered? What did you do? Share your thoughts and stories in the comments below. I'm really interested to hear what you think. ***.